so if you want to start by saying and spelling your name.
Okay, my name is Alan Heckman, A-L-L-A-N, Heckman, H-E-C-K-M-A-N,
And where were you born?
in Jeff City.
Who were your parents, and what were their occupations?
My parents were John and Mary Lou Heckman. They were farmers in Folk, Missouri.
Who are your siblings?
Uh,
Names and genders, and which, if any, served in the military?
I was the only one. I have two brothers, Leon and Randy, and two sisters, Linda and Geraldine.
What were your parents' or siblings' feelings about you joining the service?
Well, I guess they were hesitant, but I joined the National Guard right out of high school, and it was during the Vietnam conflict, so I think they were happy that I was in the National Guard rather than the regular Army at that time.
Did you hold any jobs before entering the service?
Yeah, I worked for Netwick Brothers Lumber Company here in Jeff City. It's no longer around.
What primary and secondary schools or college did you attend?
Well, I went to Catholic grade school in Folk, and then I went to Fatima High School. I took some college credits through my job, MoDOT. I never actually went to college.
Can you tell us about when you went into the military? Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted in the National Guard.
So why did you decide to join?
Well, because, everybody was going to go somewhere, so, and I had an opportunity to join the Guard. I had some friends that joined that, so I went up to the headquarters here in Jeff City and talked to Mr. Mooney, who was a recruiter at that time, and he got me in.
What or who did you leave behind when you left to serve?
Just my family. Didn't have a girlfriend or anything at that time. It was just my parents and my siblings.
In which branch did you enter?
It was Missouri National Guard.
Why did you choose that branch?
I don't know. It was, I guess because a lot of my friends were joining that, so I decided to join with them.
How did you get to your initial point of entry?
You know, like basic training?
Yeah.
By bus to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Went to basic in Fort Bragg with the 82nd Airborne.
What type of training or schooling did you have?
Well, I had 8 weeks of basic training, and then after that, I went to, it's called AIT, Advanced Individual Training. That was in Aberdeen, Maryland, and I was trained as a fire control instrument repairman. What that is, we worked on all the optics and all the instrumentation that made the tanks and the guns shoot accurately.
What is your most vivid memory of your time training or in school?
Oh gosh. Probably the training was, basic training was when you got to do the night training, and it would be raining, or it would be muddy, and you'd be crawling around in the mud. And what the heck am I doing here?
What was the best part?
I guess just the camaraderie with all the other people that you met, and we had a pretty tight group of people.
And what would you say was the worst part?
The drill sergeants.
Does any particular instructor stand out in your mind? If yes, then why?
Not really. I can't really. I had some of the drill sergeants in basic were pretty good. They taught you discipline and respect, that's for sure, which probably is one of the better things out of it.
What was your first assignment after basic training?
After basic?
Yes.
It was advanced training at Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland.
Did you receive any specialized training? If so, what?
No, just that training in the fire control. Later on I went to a lot of different schools, I went back to Aberdeen for a senior warrant course later in life. But at that time, no, I just went through the initial AIT, Advanced Individual Training.
Did you qualify with equipment such as vehicles, aircraft, radio, or weapons?
Well, we qualified with weapons, with M14 rifles and then M16 rifles. And I was qualified on M1 tanks, and not because when we worked on them, we had to know how to operate the tanks. And, I had to get a secret clearance to work on some of the optics and some of the things that were on the vehicle, so we all had to go through an FBI background check to get a secret clearance to work on the vehicles.
What was training with that equipment like?
It was good. I really enjoyed it. I mean, because once you worked on the instruments and you calibrated them, you'd get to go out with the instructors, and they'd test fire to see how well you did on, and that's how you're graded on how well you did on your calibrations and everything. It was pretty interesting.
Did you receive any promotions?
Yeah, I started out as a private E1 in basic, and after 30 years when I retired, I was a CW4 warrant officer. I went through the ranks as enlisted and then had the chance to move over to the technical side as a warrant officer.
What was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to?
It really wasn't that hard. Since I was National Guard and Reserves, I was only gone from home like 6 months at a time, and then every year for two weeks of annual training. So, I mean, I didn't think it was really that hard for me as it was for some of the people who were gone for 2 to 3 year periods at a time.
What was the easiest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to?
I don't know. Can't really answer that. I'm not sure what.
Where did you serve, and what are your recollections of that experience?
Well, like I said, after basic and AIT, we'd go to meetings every month for two days a month here in Jeff City, and then once a year we'd go to called annual training, where we went to different Army installations and was sort of trained with or worked with the regular Army people. We went to Fort Raleigh, Kansas, a few years, Fort Carson, Colorado. Spent 2 years in Germany. Went to we was assigned to the 66th Maintenance Battalion in Germany. Went there for, that was like a 3-week summer camp, for almost 3 weeks at a time. Done that 2 different years, went over there for training. So I got to see quite a bit of the country with it.
Were you in a combat support or combat service support role, or did the war zone make that designation irrelevant?
Well, we were in support of the regular Army's combat mission. We weren't actually in a combat zone.
What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
Well, I got a lot of good friends from being in the service. Some of them are from here in Jeff City. I've got 2 good friends in Germany that we have stayed in contact with, and went over to visit them, and they've been here to visit us. I was stationed at Kaiserslautern in K-Town in Germany, and there we worked with the German civilians, and Kurt Schross was a German civilian that worked for the U.S. Army in Germany, and we got to be really good friends, and we'd go to his house at nights and weekends, and then they came over to visit us.
How did you stay in touch with friends and family?
Well, at that time it was by mail. Now it's by internet, Facebook.
What did you do for recreation or when you were off duty?
Oh, we did a lot of sightseeing. We'd go to whatever various attractions were in that area we sat. Or we'd sit around and play cards and drink a little beer at times.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
No. Nothing we put on tape anyway.
Was there something you did for good luck?
No, not really.
What was the best part of your service experience?
I guess the discipline and respect it taught me for others, and plus the good friends and the friendships that we still have today from that time.
Do you recall the day service ended?
Well, yeah, I spent 23 years with the National Guard, and I retired from the National Guard as a
Excuse me, at this
CW2.
time we are in a non-emergency closed door policy. Thank you.
And after that, I joined the Army Reserves, and spent another 12 years with the, 10 years with the Army Reserves.
Where were you when your service ended?
I guess my last day of active duty, my 2 weeks, was in Fort Riley, Kansas.
Did you return home?
Yes.
Where were you? Like how?
Where was home?
Yeah.
I came back to Polk, Missouri.
How were you received by your family and community?
Oh, I think everybody's, I mean, like I say, I wasn't gone all the time, so it was, the only thing they knew that I was officially retired.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
Well, I really didn't have to readjust, because, I mean, I was only gone like 2 weeks at a time, so, and I worked for the state, for MoDOT, so my job was there when I got back. Just went back to my normal routine.
Did you work or go back to school?
Went to work.
Did the GI Bill support your education?
It would have, but I didn't take advantage of it.
How did service change you?
It just maybe give me a lot more respect for authority.
Did you continue any friendships after service?
Yes, like I said earlier, with some friends in Germany and some of the people I was in with here in the National Guard.
For how long?
Well, some of these people I've been friends with for 30-some years now.
How did service affect the way you relate to others?
There again, just have more respect for people.
Did you join a veteran organization?
No. I did join, it's called MUA, Military Officers Association. I've been a member of that.
Do you attend reunions?
No. I did several of them earlier, or retirements, but I haven't lately.
How did your military service experiences affect your life?
Can't really say it did affect it too much differently.
What are some life lessons you learned from your military service?
I guess the main will be to respect authority, and when they tell you to do something, you better do it.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
I have 100% total respect for the military, and I think it would be good if everyone had to spend some time in the service, male or female. I mean, it teaches discipline and respect, which our country is lacking a lot of these days.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view/hear this interview?
Say that again.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view/hear this interview?
Probably that they I don't know how to answer that.
Thank you for taking the time to share your recollections of your military service. Is there anything you would like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
No, I think we pretty well covered my time.
Is there anything you've always wanted to share about your service or veteran experience that you never have?
No, not really.
Do you have any memorable stories that you would share?
I guess I could share one. When I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, we had a chance to fly to an ammunition manufacturing place down in Oklahoma, and we flew on a helicopter. And I got sick on the ride down there. It wasn't very memorable at the time, but I do remember it.
It is said that in basic training, the individual is broken and the serviceman is created. Would you agree with this?
Oh, yes.
What do you remember about basic training that you still remember today?
That when you were tired and thought you couldn't go any further, those drill sergeants just kept pushing you and made you just keep on going. And after several weeks, it was just instinct. You just knew you could do more than you thought you could. But you have to remember, when you go to basic, you're like 18, 19 years old, and you don't have a clue what life's about.
Yeah.
And then when you get out of there, you know what life's all about.
How long does basic training last?
It's usually 8 weeks. We had a week first called 0 week, where you go there to get all your clothing, your boots, and you get acclimated to military life, and then you start basic, and you have 8 weeks of basic training. And it's PT, and there's a class on military justice, and you learn everything about the military as far as first aid. You go to the rifle range and qualify with a weapon. You have to throw hand grenades. It was very extensive 8 weeks of training, and it's just like from 4 in the morning till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. It was just every day. And we went through basic with the airborne trains, so it was a little more intense than it would be like at Fort Wood or somewhere like here, because we had all airborne rangers teaching us. And even though we were National Guard, they convinced us that once we got out basic, we was going straight to Vietnam, which that was psychological, to make you really work hard and train as hard as you possibly could.
Do you recall your very first day in service? Like the very first day?
The first day of basic I can recall, because I rode a bus all the way out there. When I got there, I didn't know where to go, so I got off the bus and I got a cab to take me to the induction station, or the training station. And I got in a cab, and it cost me $10. He took me around the block, because right there is where we had to go.
What did it feel like? Did you feel any different?
Well, yeah, I was scared to death. I was away from home first time in my life, and didn't know anybody there. There were several of us from our National Guard that went through the same basic training, but they intentionally sent each one of us on a different day, so we couldn't go all together at the same time. So we were all at Fort Bragg, but we were all in different companies. We weren't all in the same company together. One person did wind up, Frank Taggart, him and I wound up in the same company, and he's probably my best friend as of today. Yet we still visit on a monthly basis.
Basic training, once basic training was over, did you have a chance to go home, or did you immediately move on to service?
I got to come home for, I think, 10 days. We flew home and then flew back to Aberdeen, Maryland for AIT, or advanced training.
What was the food like during basic training?
It was good. They had whole white milk in this big, they're in cartons, like 2.5 gallon, 5 gallon cartons. And the milk was so good. And the food was really good. I mean, they fed you a lot, because you burned a lot of calories because you was working.
Yeah.
Food is very good.
Did you feel like pressure or stress?
Oh yeah, you were stressed every day because you didn't know what they was gonna throw at you next.
What was the scariest thing they made you do?
Probably when you had to crawl up this rope and swing off of it to the other side somehow. I can't remember just how I did it, but because I don't like heights anyway. Some of the hardest things were, I mean, the PT was some of the hardest things we did, physical training. And you had to do 76 of these runs hand over hand. You had to go down monkey bars, and you had to crawl through an obstacle course. You had to run a mile with your combat boots on. You had to do that in 6 minutes. You had to run a mile. And like I say, we started out, we couldn't do it, but by the end of it, we was done it in less than 6 minutes. You just got, I was in the best physical shape I was ever in my life after basic. Not like I am today.
How do people like entertain themselves besides like drinking, I guess?
Well, there was on post after basic, then you could go to, there was like NCO clubs, so like you could go there and they had beer and you could get French fries and stuff. And there's movie theaters on post, you go to movies or, there's different things you could do on post.
Where were you sent after basic for advanced training?
Aberdeen, Maryland.
Do you agree that you were put in the right position when you were sent on for advanced training?
Yes, because we took tests before we left to see what we were at, what we were adapted to do. And that was one of the things that it was, because it was a lot of electrical and mechanical stuff, which I was good at. So we knew, we knew when we went in what we was going to do. But when they said fire control, I thought it meant a fireman. I didn't know.
What skills do you remember being taught during advanced training?
How to clean optics, how to clean binoculars, and how to take different pieces of equipment apart and just put them back together. And we did this all through my career with the National Guard. I went to several Army depots, which is a higher echelon maintenance where they actually rebuild and refurbish equipment. So I went to Letterkenny in Pennsylvania, Rock Island, Illinois. Went to 4 or 5 different Army depots where you could really get into the nitty-gritty of all the equipment. Not much more so than you can when you're on a unit level.
Were there any pranks or anything that anyone pulled to entertain themselves?
Oh yeah. And basically we had one guy, he was from somewhere on the East Coast, and he would not take a shower. He was terrible. So one night, eventually, when he was sleeping, we grabbed his blanket, rolled him up in the blanket, carried him down, threw him in the shower. In the middle of the night. And we made him take a shower. And we do other things. This was after basic. We had one sergeant that was kind of ornery toward us. And so one night we'd all been out and had a few drinks and come back and took his combat boots and filled them up with cherries and stuff we got out of our drinks. Took his boots and threw them up on the roof of the barracks. So the next morning when he found him, they had to take him off and they turned over, all the cherries and stuff rolled out of his boots. So yeah, so if you pull a prank, he's gonna go pull back on you too. So.
Did you keep a diary or anything to write stuff down?
I had a lot of stuff, which I don't know what, I looked through it the other day for it, I couldn't find everything. I did keep track of the dates when I went to different places. No, I don't have a complete diary of what I have.
What did you think of officers or fellow soldiers? Like, just what did you think of them?
Well, most of them you respected. Every once in a while you'd have one, senior officer that thought he was a little bit better than you were too. But there's always ways to get back at them. But overall, I had respect for almost probably 99% of the people that were superior to me.
How long did you serve in the military?
Well, I was in the National Guard for 23 years, and then I joined the Army Reserves for another 10 years.
And what was the reason for you to get out?
I was getting too old. I was 60 years old when I actually retired from completely got out of the reserves. But one of the biggest benefits is you know, my health care is paid for, and I get a monthly retirement from this.
From your time in the service, could you give 4 or 5 things that you remember vividly even today?
Oh, I think so. I can still shoot a gun. I still like to do mechanical things. I think a lot of it is from my training in Aberdeen.
What do you remember most about your time in service?
I don't know.
What qualities did you believe you carried from the military to where you are today?
Well, like I said earlier, respect for other people and learning to respect authority.
What are your most enduring memories of your time in service?
I don't really know. You get some tough questions there.
Did you receive any medals or citations or anything?
Yeah, I had the highest score, basic training, it's called individual proficiency score in our unit. I think I was, out of 200 points, I had like 194 points.
Wow.
That was for weapons qualifications and first aid and I can't remember. There was different things that you were rated on. And then the last one was, how did your commanding officer rate you? And he rated me at 100%, so I got a superior rating for that. And throughout my career, I'd go to schools and get certificates. And I graduated from my AIT, I had the highest score in AIT. In advanced training, I had the highest score in there. I got an award for that. And it wasn't I was that good, I was just lucky. I got some of the better equipment to work on. Some of the stuff they gave you to work on was junk. It seemed like I was lucked out and got a piece that wasn't just too bad a shape, so it was easier to refurbish it.
Can you remember any of the names of the people you served with during your time of service?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of impression did they make on you?
Well, it was a good impression. I can remember our drill sergeant in basic training, Sergeant Duggins. He was a short guy, and he was airborne, and he could run. And most of the drill sergeants, there was 2 for each platoon, and they would take turns. One would run with you while the other one, but he would run the whole time with you. I mean, he was really a dedicated soldier. I really remember. And I remember a commanding officer. His name was Alan, too, Alan Johnson. He was our commanding officer. At AIT, we had two Filipinos that trained with us. They were from the Philippines, the Philippine Army. They trained with us in our advanced training. I remember them very well. One was pretty good, and the other one, he was all thumbs. He could not fix anything.
Was there anything else that motivated you to join the Army instead, not just your friends?
Well, I mean, I wanted to serve, I knew I was gonna serve one way or the other at that point in time, so. I mean, I knew I was gonna do something, but since my friends were joining, I just decided to join with them.
Do you still stay in contact with any of those friends
Mhm.
today?
Yeah. Quite a few of them.
What was one of your favorite foods that you guys got to eat? You said the food was really good. What was one of your
Well, I
favorite
guess
things?
milk was a favorite thing. That wasn't me to, let's see what food. Probably breakfast. I mean, they had some of the best. Always had bacon and eggs, or I really can't complain. And when we went to advanced training, we had they weren't Army cooks. They were contract. They had a contract kitchen. And basic, we stayed in the old World War II barracks, but for AIT we stayed in 3 like college dormitories. They were really nice buildings. And we had a great big mess hall. It was big brick buildings. You know, through AIT, as long as nobody went AWOL, we never had an inspection. We never had one inspection of our barracks or the whole time we were there. As long as no one went AWOL, they would say, we won't inspect your barracks.
You said that you were only gone for like 2 weeks at a time. What were your visits home like and how long were those?
Well, see, you go, with the National Guard, you go 2 days a week, 2 days a month, 1 weekend a month, you had training in Jeff City. And then once a year, you'd go to your called annual training. And so they'd send, and we'd go by convoy, we'd take all our big old trucks. And after I got a little more rank, they'd let you take your POV, your personal vehicle. So we'd use it to drive our own vehicles to summer camp. Except when we went to Germany, then we all flew over. And we flew to Germany the first time on, it was the DC-10s, a big wide-body jet. It was the same time when they were having trouble with those where the rivets were breaking or something, and some of them were having problems, and here we got on one of those to fly to Germany, but it was a good flight.
What was happening in the world during your time of service?
Well, when I got in, it was the Vietnam conflict, and then when I joined the Army Reserves, it was during the Iraqi war. And the unit I was assigned to in Fort Riley, they had just left for Iraq. So when I went there for training, I was a warrant officer by then, and I was their shop officer. I ran their shop while they were gone for 2 weeks.
Are there any misconceptions that you'd like to clear up about war and veterans?
Well, I think, especially after Vietnam, I mean, the reception the veterans got after that was horrible. It seems like it's better now. I mean, this year especially has been a lot more. And I'm not sure if it's because of the current administration, but it seems like veterans are getting more respect now than they did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do without your phone?
What was your job when you began the military service?
Well, we were instrument repairmen. We worked on that, but a lot of the times we'd go to annual trainings, or some of the units didn't have some of the equipment that we were trained to work on. So some years we would actually inspect weapons for the units. We'd go in and inspect all their M16s and their grenade launchers, and we would do maintenance on them, check them, make sure that the bolts matched up with the right weapon, and we did a lot of that and training at times when there wasn't anything for our specific AIT trainings. We did a lot of small arms training to work.
Is there anything else you want to share before we finish up?
I think we pretty well said it all.
Well, thank you for taking your time to
Oh, no
let
problem.
us interview you.